Call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. There are 2 board members not present tonight, Randy Johnson and Jill Smith, and they are excused. First up is review and approval of the May 14th public hearing minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 14th public hearing minutes.
Second.
Discussion?
Oh, I do have one question.
Okay.
Line 146, she also suggested, who is she?
Where are you?
Line 146.
Oh, we're on the hearing first.
Public hearing.
And there's only 27 lines.
Applying mathematical equations.
Now listen.
Okay. Do you have anything? All right, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next up, May 14th public meeting minutes. Sean?
I'll make a motion to approve those.
Oh, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the May 14th public meeting minutes.
Second.
Discussion?
146, I just need to know who she is. Is that Randy or Kate?
That was Kate.
Okay.
Yeah, she also suggested that the 1-through grading system may work for the elementary school level, maybe.
Do you need it to say
Middle, high
Kate?
school.
Also suggested.
Very good. Motion. You don't need it. I'm just curious.
Any other?
I thought it was motion to discuss and then approve.
Well, but he's presenting a change, so if you agree to the change, you could amend your motion.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Up to you.
All right. So I guess we'll amend my motion of approval of May 14th public meeting minutes with,
Amending line
yeah,
146 to change she to Kate.
Yeah.
Did you get that correct? Oh, I should have asked. Jeff, do you agree to that?
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. All right. Our next board meeting is at Canterbury Elementary School on June 11th. Public communication and correspondence. Before I open it up, we did get communication from a parent who was not able to be here tonight, a parent and an educator in the district, which will be attached to our next meeting minutes when they come out. So just to be aware of that, we submitted to Greta. So I'm open to public comment, and so if you'd like to speak, you can come up, say your name, spell your last name, and say what town you're from.
I have to come up. Lisa Ober, Belmont, O-B-E-R. Just looking at going back to your grading system here, your depth of knowledge, I know you said you're gonna build it out. You need to understand from a teacher's perspective, I know you're not a teacher, we don't understand what this is, but depth of knowledge is incorrect. It should be extend the use of knowledge if you're gonna get a 4. Not use the knowledge. They should be using the knowledge the whole time, so you don't even have that correct. And granted, the dates on the bottom say 2015, so maybe you didn't look at that part, but if you're gonna just keep this and go, please correct it to extend the knowledge, because that's not the DOK way to go. Just
Lisa,
saying.
what are you referring to?
Oh, it's this grading
IKA.
5 through 12, IKA, KKK. Anyway, and the 2 independently, Mr. Tercy, I guess, put a D If it's independent, you shouldn't be failing. You can do it independently. So there's a lot you have to look at if you're going to keep these words. I know you're working on it, but I'm just giving my point of view because I'm from education. I'm also a parent. So it's not that the parents don't understand this stuff. The teachers don't even understand. It's not, it's subjective. Like a valid attempt. What the heck does that mean? They put their name on the paper. I say that's a valid attempt. What if she says, no, it's not a valid attempt? You know, so there's a lot, and it's not just parents that don't understand. Teachers and children, students do not either. That's all I've got to say. Again.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Durand from Canterbury, D-U-R-A-N-D. I agree too with the language that, you know, the students, the poor students, trying to understand how to translate this to what they do in the classroom for every single competency that they have to meet is going to be incredibly difficult. I can tell you, I do understand the 1 through 4. Completely understand it. I just don't think it plays well in practice. I mentioned last meeting that I was part of the whole planning and implementation, and I gave feedback, and I thought it was a great idea. I don't know how, it's been, 7, 8 years. I've had 2 kids in the district. It worked great when they were younger. Now that they're older, I think it causes more stress and anxiety for the students because they're trying to figure out what they need to do. And particularly when it comes to students getting 4s. You know, if you were a really smart student before this was implemented, you'd get 100 on your exams, right? Now it's, well, you know what, you met the competency, so you get a 3. And the high performers want to know, what do I do to get a 4? Well, that's a whole other additional project that you have to do that you never had to do before. So now they're being asked to do extra work, which is causing anxiety. And I can't even tell you the number of times that teachers have been like, either I don't give a 4, or talk to me next week, talk to me next week, talk to me next week. And my poor kid is going back, and you know, eventually they just want to give up because they keep asking and they're getting the same thing. So it's the kids who are trying to get 4s, it's a struggle for them, I think. And I'm only speaking to that because, you know, I'm sure there are struggles in other areas too. But the way that this is written, and I don't know if this is the most up-to-date version because I searched the website today and couldn't find it, which is a recommendation that I have to more transparency to the parents as to what is like being moved forward. I just like derailed myself with what I was gonna say. So I find it confusing. The other thing is for students who can't earn a 4 because the teacher says I don't give 4s, this is now being included in their GPA calculation, and it's going to drag it down because they don't have the opportunity to get a 4. I think there's a lot of these small little issues, and this is just one example, that need to be fully addressed. That they weren't ever issues when we had the, you know, A through F system. I can understand the desire to make sure that every student is competent in each of these things, but the fact of the matter is that they're not, and nor should they be. Like, the kids don't need to be 100% competent at every single competency. That's not how life is. It's just not. So I agree absolutely that the wording, I personally think it needs a lot of work because I am also an educator, and I am trying to wrap my head around how, I mean, I have to read these sentences 4 or 5 times to even start to understand what's being asked, and then how to actually put it into play is a whole different story. So again, like, if students are not allowed to earn 4s, it's not fair to them. It's not being, their GPA is going to get dragged down. And then as a parent, this is a humongous sweeping change, I think. The whole grading system was a huge change. And I'm not going to say for 100% sure, I'm pretty sure I've never received a survey saying, we've implemented this change, what has been your experience? And so as a parent, I think we should be asked. Same with teachers. There should be some sort of either focus group and survey, or maybe that's already been done. Like I said, I don't know like what's been done with the teachers and students as well. So all of the stakeholders should be able to provide input, and it should be an open and welcoming environment where nobody feels threatened to say how they really feel. I think that's probably it, but I'm sure I forgot something and I'll kick myself later. But yeah, I think stakeholder input is huge and it seems to be lacking. But again, if, I think maybe if it has been done, more transparency as to like, here's what has gone into the creation of this policy, not, and it's not just a handful of people. The other thing I wanted to say was the survey, the petition that went around. I mean, that's a significant amount of families who have an issue with the grading system. So yeah, there's only some of us that have been showing up to every meeting, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that hundreds of signatures were on that petition, and it's saying that we want our voice to be heard and that we were looking for a change. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Andrea Bezegai, Besegai from Belmont. I want to reiterate some of the points that Cheryl and Lisa brought up earlier. Sitting through the meeting prior to this, there was some great discussion. It's very clear that even as a school board, not everybody is at the same level of understanding, just like the teachers, just like the students, and just like the parents. When we look at some of the language on here, it's very subjective. What is sophisticated, hold on, I can't remember it. Transferring sophisticated concepts to one teacher could be, interpreted differently by another educator. When we're looking at the DOK, I think the DOK is great. It's really important to make sure you have different levels of knowledge and make sure you're addressing that when you're teaching your students and when you're having them show you what they understand and what they know. But the language can be used in a more effective way to help students understand, to help teachers understand, and to help parents understand. When I looked at some of the schools that were brought up in the other committee, Bo is using a 0 to 100 scale along with competencies, so is Guilford. In fact, in Guilford it says you might pass a class, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get credit for the class. I'm not sure what their scale is, but maybe, reaching out across to different school districts, seeing what they have done for their grading policy, what is working. Because right now, what is happening is our students are graduating from Belmont High School with significantly lower GPAs than other schools around us. They do have to do a calculation for all the schools when they go into different admissions, but I have heard from admission people at Plymouth and from some of the other universities that when they see Belmont High School transcripts, they get really frustrated because ours are extra hard for some reason to put into their system and calculate. And it is hurting our kids. It's hurting our kids with the number of scholarships that they receive, the amount of money. And, a lot of these kids, because of money and things like that, they don't just have school as their job. They're working outside of school hours at a regular job. They are doing sports and all of those things. And to have all of these stressors on their plate, when my kid comes to me and is in tears and is like, I don't think I'm going to get into this college I want because of our grading system and how it is weighted, that's hard. That's really hard to hear from them. And it's not from lack of effort, and it's not from lack of trying. And there are teachers who are like, you can't get a 4, but why not? Why can't you receive the highest? If you're putting in the effort and you are showing that you can do it, why can't you get that 4? Thank you.
Anyone else?
Jessica McSheffrey, MCSHEFFREY, from Belmont. I just wanted to add a little bit to what has already been said. Multiple people have talked about the subjectiveness about our grading system. I think that's something that also needs to be addressed. I feel like there needs to be education with teachers. I've seen it firsthand and with my daughter in math, something that should be very concrete to grade. You're not grading an essay or somebody's opinion, you're grading, can they do this math problem? And she has had multiple kids in her class have the same exact answers on exams, and they get completely different grades. And teachers are human. I mean, I'm not an educator, but I can say that I would probably judge a kid on their behavior that day or something, that would play into effect in how I grade them if what I'm following to interpret our grading system wasn't more objective rather than subjective. So I would love to see more discussion about how teachers and educators can receive more education themselves on how to use this as you guys go through the process of modifying it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Just a quick question. Is the draft of IKA on the website?
It has not been changed.
Nothing's been changed, right on the front page.
It's on the front page.
Yeah, you click on the agenda, and links to all the policies.
It did not do that for me today.
All right. Steve in our packet has an update, buildings and grounds update. People had questions that Michael or Debbie could take back. Pretty straightforward.
Oh. Kate. It's a logo in the center of the court, Fox logo or Red Raider logo?
It's a B with a fox on top of it.
It's the Red Raider.
Alright, I hate the term Fox, but.
So I picked up on that too, in his report, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm just curious what students refer to it as.
Oh.
Is it Fox logo or Red Raider logo? I mean, it says Red Raiders on the floor, but I know I've heard both terms. So. I was curious.
I would say, I haven't heard too much about it. People commented it on like the first couple of days, but I would say both of them interchangeably almost. When they're referring specifically to like sports teams or anything, I would use Red Raiders, but if they're talking about like the new mascot on the floor, they usually use the $10.
Not a big fan, just curious.
Okay. Debbie.
Yeah. Yep. Not much to update. We're getting ready to wind down the year. We've trained the staff district-wide on entering their requests in our new infinite vision system, so that's going well. So we'll be doing that for the 24-25 requests.
Is this part of our new accounting software?
That's the one that we converted to.
I didn't know what it was called.
Infinite Visions. It is. And that's it for the update. The second thing is you have the award of the Chromebook bids and the lease.
The leases, do we go out to bid on leases? How's that work?
So in the past, we've included a lease option when we go out to bid, and we always found that the companies were paying higher rates on the lease going with the company. So we go out to separate companies for leasing.
So they're two separate?
They're two separate. And this year, we only got 2 responses to our request. The third company that has always bid just did not this year.
I make a motion to award the RFP to Wally Computer Associates for $87,600 and the financing for First American for $31,194.36 per year for 3 years. Second.
Discussion?
That lease rate is consistent with what we've been leasing.
If I remember right, these numbers were presented to us in January-ish, or?
No, estimates were.
Correct.
Right, when we were doing budget development.
Yep.
I had estimated 130,000 for the, so, 30,000 for the annual lease, and it's 31,000.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Meal prices, Debbie again.
So as you know, I come to you every year, we have to complete a whole formula to see what we need to do to try to attain what the federal reimbursement rate is, which we will never attain, but we can shoot for it anyway. So these are my recommendations based on the formula, and also we've typically charged the adults the same as the students, the high school level, but they do get a larger serving and they should be paying more than the students.
Did you say about the serving?
The adults get served more than the students.
That was my question. Okay.
Yeah, we're not limited on the adult serving sizes like we are for the students. We're mandated on student serving sizes.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended increases for food service meals for 2024, 2025. Second.
Any discussion?
Just out of curiosity, we might have asked this question before, I just don't remember if it would answer. Might have been Sean would ask it. If we just did free lunches not free, if we just did non-individual charges for lunches, what would that increase our budget by? Approximately.
Several $1 million.
Oh, it's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you do lunch and breakfast for everyone.
Yep. Okay.
So, in the first paragraph, you said the weighted average per meal of $3.74.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that means?
So the weighted average is, we have to look at the number of meals we served in October, how many were elementary paid lunches, times the elementary cost per lunch. And then we take the middle school and the high school number of paid lunches times their charge per lunch. And then you come up with the total formula. It's the total number of students with the total revenue, and divide it out, so you come up with a weighted average, because you're charging middle school and high school higher numbers, higher lunch prices than the elementary schools.
That weighted average doesn't have anything to do with what the USDA.
Yeah, the USDA says we should be at $4.84.
I guess that was my question. What would USDA say?
$4.84.
For both elementary.
Weighted average, yeah.
Which seems like a lot.
And it gets further and further every year, because the amount that they reimburse us goes up 2% plus the cost of living every year.
Yes, it feels like we increase it by, say, a quarter every year.
We do.
The gap's getting bigger even though we do it.
Yeah, because of how they're doing their reimbursements, which was something I brought up at the last meeting. They had a whole workshop on this paid lunch equity tool. And I said, it really doesn't matter what we do. We're never going to be able to catch up with them, because no one's going to increase it as much as they need to in 1 year. So.
And how our lunches compare to other school districts in the area?
Don't. That was something that was brought up at the meeting, asking if they could get that information, because they have it all. We've done surveys before, but I haven't done one lately.
So why wouldn't we, just run on the national weighted?
Just make our meal prices $4.84.
Push back from community?
Huge pushback if you
Yep.
jump that much, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So is it something that we should
But
be
that would-
trying to
that
close
would
the gap?
increase the number of applications for free and reduced, right?
Not necessarily.
No, you have income levels, doesn't
Right.
matter what the cost of the food. So if we're increasing a quarter a year and not making ground on the, what we should be at the weighted average, should we be increasing by more than a quarter?
We should, but we have to take into account what can people afford.
Again, I'm asking the
Yeah.
question
No,
for
I know.
purpose
Yeah,
of discussion.
yeah.
not-
The other thing that would be important, and I've got to somehow figure out, if it holds true this year, from what I've heard, the eligibility for the SNAP, which is the supplemental needs for families, that eligibility is a higher percentage over poverty level. So we have people right now that have applied for free through their application, and they don't qualify for free meals, they qualify for reduced meals. But if they went down to Health and Human Services and applied for SNAP, they would qualify for SNAP, and then they'd become automatically eligible for free meals through the district. So that's another thing that we address, that somehow the two divisions need to get on the same page.
Last question for me. We're not close to the USDA recommended price. How does that impact us from a budget perspective?
So from a budget perspective, we've done okay for the past couple of years, only because the feds have come out with additional support because of the supply chain issues. So the fact that we had to pay more for some of the food that we were getting enabled us to run in the, we had a surplus for the last few years.
I continue to say, it doesn't matter what you're recommending. Our community can only afford this. And this is what we're doing.
So at some point, as long as we are showing that we're making gains, at some point, if you said to me, I don't care what the Paid Lunch Equity tool says, we're not increasing our prices, then you would have to decide as a board, are you going to take the number of meals served and write a check from the general fund to cover that amount of the cost, whatever that increase was supposed to be. And they set it at a minimum of 10 cents, that we would have to write a check for every meal of 10 cents and write that over to the food service, totally outside of what you already do now to supplement the food service program.
None of this makes any sense.
I know. You can split the difference and have parents pay part, you pay part.
Right.
But then that's affecting your budget.
And because the last couple of years we've been okay, I'd be hesitant to increase it, but there was a time when I first came on the board where we were having to cover a significant portion
Mhm.
because it was running in the red.
Yep.
So at some point we might have to.
Right.
There's a motion and a second, so additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Yes.
So I misspoke earlier. The agenda for the policy committee is on the webpage, but it doesn't have the links to all the draft policies that are part of that.
Okay.
So we'll make sure that when we post the agenda that there's a link to those draft policies.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Sorry, can I just interrupt real quick? I know it's probably a lot of work, but IKA isn't the only policy that the policy committee is looking at and making changes to.
That's what he said, he
So-
posts them all.
So every month, or however we meet, those will be updated.
So I agree.
We'll
We did
post-
two others.
We'll post the draft policies as a link to the agenda for any policy that's being discussed with the policy committee.
Okay, on the horizon. I would like somewhere for us to add what we're doing with strategic direction. I don't remember where it left off.
It's on June 11th.
Okay, good. So you're gonna bring us stuff on June 11th?
And that's basically, I'd like for the board to, when we talk about that, is designate a member from the board as the
Okay,
liaison,
okay, good. I missed that.
start looking into the facilitator.
That was easy to check. Thanks.
You have roof bids. You should have roof bids.
Which one? High school is just done.
The high school main office area, that one was not done.
Anything else?
But the athletic report is keen, actually, that.
Yeah. And all of these reports will be ready? Or would any of them bleed over?
We've actually tend to push the end of year reports to the actual end of the year. Usually the first meeting in July, we'll mail those reports to. We just haven't adjusted it on the
The other thing, I don't know where it goes, but we had said during budget development that we wanted to look at class size, or, and I think you wanted to kick it to policy first, which is fine, but I don't know when we would put it on policy, so.
Just been trying to get the IKA.
Yeah, well,
It's taken up the majority of our.
I just think we're gonna run into budget season again and not have looked at where we're at, so I don't wanna lose it.
Yeah, Sean's gonna ask, has the policy committee looked at this? Why?
Well, I more was thinking, what do we need to get done over the summer to set us up for, because we go right into budget development in the fall, so I'm thinking about, which I know Debbie is excited and all, but we have to do some research.
My budget didn't have the development calendar. Nope.
Right, see, I knew it, so, anyway, thank you. Anything else? Okay, volunteer list.
Thank you. Motion to accept the volunteer list with the noted exceptions.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Findings and recommendations of the Withdrawal Study Committee. I don't know if Randy told you. I know that she did meet with Oyster River's communication person. So I know she was going to report out on that in particular. Yeah.
I'd like to move that item to the June 11th meeting.
Yes.
Okay, motion. Table it. What's that?
No, this is the agenda.
Oh, true.
June 11th.
It's just.
Okay, we can acknowledge the resignations in public, and then there are 3 nominations that we can do in public if they're of a non-personnel nature. If people have questions of a personnel nature, we can can do that in non-public.
Make a motion to accept the nomination for the BCBA and nomination for the Belmont High School math teachers.
Second.
Any discussion?
Michael, do you meet each of these applicants too? Or the finalists or whatever?
Not the BCBA, the specialists, teachers.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Public communication and correspondence? Seeing none. We do have one agenda item in non-public.